Hello and good morning, Duality of Wrestling Dwellers. My name is Christian, as always, and I am back with you to review AEW's Forbidden Door of 2026. Um, Now, just quick, housekeeping note. Just like the previews did, I'm going to break these up into two parts. A little bit easier digestible for everybody, so hopefully that format works for you. If it does or doesn't, give me a shout in the comments and let me know what I could better do to make this a little bit more palatable for you. So we're going to start early on in the 0 hour stuff with I'm one of the few things of the night that really made me want to throw something. It was the qualifying match for the TBS Championship Survival of the Fittest, Sky Blue versus Micah, and in a okay match that was decent but unspectacular, you have Micah getting the win, going on to Survival of the Fittest for that TBS championship that's vacant. Um, what are we doing, guys? Listen, I'm saying this fully acknowledging I am biased because I really like Sky Blue and I really like the Triangle of Madness as a whole. But you're going to tell me you can't even give Sky Blue, who showed out so hard and so well in the Blood and Guts last year, that I even had casual fans reaching out to me and be like, dude, who is this lady? Because they happen to see it on TV and be like, she needs to be a bigger star. More sympathetic to that cause, I could not be. And the idea that we have gone from that point in November of last year to now it being June of 2026, so not even a full year removed, and we have Sky Blue not only losing in the first round of the women's Owen Hart bracket, which I didn't love but I could stomach, but you're going to tell me you're going to have Sky Blue needs to lose so Micah can have a spot in the Survival of the Fittest match. I I don't understand. Someone needs to explain it to me like I'm five. There is nothing about Sky Blue that makes me think she should not be a top contender for a women's mid card championship like the TBS, let alone in the match itself. I I am incredibly frustrated with that aspect of it. I don't know whose cornflake Sky Blue pissed in, and that it must have been smelling like cat urine for it to end up this way. Because yikes. I don't know why Homegirl cannot seem to get dubs anymore, but dubs don't seem to exist in the realm of Sky Blue. So I'm gonna be a little bit bitter about that over here, but that's okay because we don't always get what we want. I don't like this move. I don't think it makes sense. I don't think Micah brings anything to the table that Sky Blue would not do better. And I think Sky Blue would be a better fit for this match as a whole. And I'm gonna do a preview of the Survival of the Fittest match and probably of Beach Break coming up since it's shaping up to be a pretty significant Dynamite. But that'll probably be tomorrow that'll launch. So for right now, we're just going to focus on moving past my unhappiness with this early thing of Double or Nothing. I'm sorry, not Double or Nothing, Forbidden Door. It's getting caught up in me. So now we have Dan Maloney and Daniel Garcia in a nothing match where Dan Maloney ends up getting the victory, and that's another one I don't understand. I don't know what's happened to Daniel Garcia over the last year or so, but ever since he's joined the Death Riders, that dude has also really done nothing of note, and he has become a former TNT champion and somebody who could reasonably be looked at to be a staple of the mid card, and he is very firmly dropped into the undercard now. He is well behind, just in the Death Riders alone in pecking order, Moxley, Claudio, Pac, Osprey, obviously. You've got him playing fifth banana in a stable that he was recruited into, and now and even potentially sixth if you factor in Marina Shafir. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but I'm not going to be quite as upset because, as I was the Sky Blue thing, because this match, frankly, wasn't even advertised. I'm not sure I understand the logic behind, jobbing Danny Garcia out here. I don't think it does a lot for that kid's future. I don't think it says a lot overall for how he's been booked, but we'll move on to the one thing that was pretty much a layup in the 0 hour buy-in, whatever you want to call it, for Forbidden Door, which was the Divine Dominion of Megan Bayne and Lena Cross defending their tag team championships successfully over Thunder Rosa and Olympia in which was a good match. It was fun from an in-ring standpoint, but the stakes are a little bit lower knowing that the Divine Dominion are going to retain in most situations right now. There's very little question that they're going to lose those tag team championships anytime soon. And again, nor should they. With the depth issues the women's roster has right now, they should be running roughshod through teams, and that's exactly what's happening right now. So I'm all for that. I love that they're positioning Bane and Cross as absolute killers in this division. So very very happy with how they're being booked, how that story is being told. I'm just curious as to where they're eventually going to go to pay that story off and eventually have face contenders be the ones to take those titles off of Divine Dominion. I don't see them available right now. The logical choices I mentioned in the preview show would have been the Brawling Birds of Alex Windsor and Jamie Hayter, but unfortunately Jamie Hayter is back on the injured list. We don't know exactly what her prognosis or timetable is. We don't know if she'll be ready for London. So I don't really know what's available in that sense right now. And I don't see any other women's teams on the roster who can believably challenge, let alone defeat the Divine Dominion. So right now, they're going to be your indefinite women's tag team champions until they start booking babyface teams of women stronger, and that hasn't happened yet. So indefinite future, Divine Dominion are going to run with those titles for a long, long time. Now let's move on to the main card. We opened it with the hot California opener of the Young Bucks taking on Sky Team of Mascara Dorada and Mystico, and the Unbound Company of Titan, which I guess I pronounced it wrong, so my apologies there in the preview, and Shingo Takagi. This was a fun but unspectacular match. It very much fit the theme of Forbidden Door as a whole of let's give this more of a showcase feel. There's not a lot of stakes involved here. This is more just a glorified exhibition, which is okay. Not everything has to have, the weight of the world on its booking shoulders, so to speak. So to me, this was fine for what it was. Bucks went over here, which I think made sense. The Bucks have taken a lot of losses lately. They've lost to the Dogs. They lost to FTR back at Revolution. It's been a tough road to hoe for the Young Bucks in their newfound babyface regime. So they needed a win here. It was nice for them to pick one up. I would say especially the team of Mystico and Mascara Dorada looked exceptional. Really, really good. You had a good shooting star press onto the outside from Dorada, and then another really one inside on both one of the Bucks and Takagi. He is really, really good in the ring. I would say even better than Mystico, but Mystico is more over of the two and is the one that's booked stronger. Hopefully we can see Dorada reach those heights at some point, but either way, really good showing from both the international, other promotion represented teams. But ultimately, Young Bucks got the win, and that's what made the most sense to me when I was looking at it from the outset. So, good. I'm glad I was on the money there. I was actually surprised at the next match. I really thought this might take place later in the card, which is why I put it in part 2 originally of my preview. But the following match was Kenny Omega versus Zack Sabre Jr. It was billed as more of a technical showcase. And it was definitely more leaning into what Zack Sabre Jr. does really well of exhibiting all of the ways he can beat you from a technical standpoint. That was played up really well. I actually really liked the line. I believe it was either, I can't remember if it was Excalibur, or it might have been Nigel, who said that the philosophy about Sabre's wrestling style is it's like jazz music. It's more free flowing. It's more adaptive. It doesn't have to have a strident game plan going forward. And I really liked that analogy. I think it works really well in describing Zack Sabre's style. I've heard it used before in talking about the counter wrestling style of Jay White, who we can talk a little bit more later. And I thought it was very apt there. And I think it's even more apt in Zack Sabre Jr.'s case. Really good work by commentary there. And everything in this match was just super crisp, as you would expect from two contenders of this caliber in the ring together, even despite not having done so in several years, as the storyline was, happy to point out. There was definitely a rough looking Poison Rana from Kenny in this match that's I think Sabre may have under rotated on, because it looked like he landed a little bit flat on the back of his head. Not in your usual like top of head landing that we've seen some guys really popularize. This one looked a little bit more snug. So, hopefully there's nothing that comes out of that. Hopefully Zach is fine. But I did notice it on my end. And then that finished us up with a really cool spot where we got a one-winged angel into a triangle choke by Zack Sabre Jr. that looked really, really smooth. And again, accentuated that Sabre can turn anything that you have around on you and use it to his advantage, which is such a great skill. He is such a good technical wrestler. I'm not exactly hot taking anybody by saying Zack Sabre Jr. is a great technical wrestler, but we don't get to see him often enough on American soil in AEW. We get it maybe once a year with Forbidden Door, potentially more if we're lucky. So I think this is worth really re-acknowledging and re-upping and doubling down, I guess, on how good Zack Sabre Jr. is in the ring. He'd be such a great addition to the AEW roster. I understand why we can't get him full time. I'd love to see us get him more, though. So would love to see more of Sabre Jr. But this match finished up with Kenny Omega getting the win with a one-winged angel, which makes sense because we are moving Kenny Omega back into the world title picture, especially given some other events that happened in the show. I think Kenny will end up in that picture sooner than later, especially given some of the other booking we've seen in the weeks leading up to this. So Kenny winning was necessary to re-elevate him into the main event scene, and this accomplished that goal pretty well. So totally happy with how this match went. Much like the first match, this was very, very good. Neither of them jumped off the page for me as like, oh my gosh, this is such a fantastic match. It was very, very good. Very much what I expected from these two guys, but it wasn't like, oh my god, I need to rush to the internet to tell everybody about Kenny Omega and Zack Sabre Jr. So, very good match. Not, oh my god, this is incredible match. We got more of those later. Following that one, we had Jon Moxley defending the AEW Continental Championship against Bandito. Moxley took this one with a sort of grapevine double leg hook sleeper. Another one that I kind of expected to be a little bit more of a banger than it was. You got Bandito busted open after a Moxley pile driver on the ring steps. I personally really enjoyed, and especially I assume this was a blood spot that was planned in advance, because you don't really see Bandito wear all white gear very often. And obviously the sight of, red blood being done from a juice spot and contrasting with the all white costume and gear that Bandito decided to wear was obviously a really good choice. And made that color he got pop a little bit. So it kind of helped visually sell the match in just that stylistic choice. So I think that was smart on AEW's production part. Then we had Moxley partly through the match ripping about a third of the mask off of Bandito, and commentary was quick to acknowledge that that would have been a disqualification in Mexico, but obviously that is not the case here. It was a good match. Just it didn't jump out at me as, wow, this is great. And usually matches involving Bandito and especially even Mox defending the Continental Championship have been really great in the last few months. So this one, I don't want to say any of these first three matches fell flat. They were good. They just weren't what I am typically spoiledly expecting from an AEW pay-per-view, which is nothing but bangers. And good, solid contests aren't bangers despite the fact that they're good. This was good. I was entertained. Sports entertained even, if you will. But it didn't take my breath away. So Moxley retains in an area we all expected, and that moves us forward to another Death Rider related match. Shota Umino defending the IWGP Global Heavyweight Championship that he has newly won from Andrade El Idolo against Pac of the Death Riders. This one had some more spots in it that I was able to get into more. And again, I'm biased because I'm a big Pac guy. But what everyone's going to talk about coming out of this match is the awesome bomb spot that Pac did on Shota through the table on the outside. Absolutely vicious looking. And commentary, to their credit, called it as such. I believe it was Excalibur that called it the awesome bomb. I didn't recognize it that way at first. I was like, oh, it's a power bomb on the outside through the table. My brain just didn't process that that was a, a Mike Awesome era awesome bomb, but it was, and it looked great. So kudos to them for, recognizing the spot that it was, because I didn't. And I should have. So good job by Excalibur. I was really impressed by Shota Umino in this match. Very, very technically sound. Um, the story that was told by commentary and a little bit by the video package was playing up Shota Umino's history with Moxley as a protege, with the Death Riders as a whole. So that added a level to the story beyond just a title defense that I think made it resonate a little bit more with me. It wasn't just your exhibition level contest. It wasn't just a title defense. There was some personal emotional history here, and I think that played really well from a booking standpoint. Shota Umino took this match with the second chapter, but I understand it again. Pac's a contracted AEW wrestler, whereas Shota Umino more represents NJPW. So of course I don't expect Shota Umino to drop the IWGP Global Heavyweight Championship to Pac here, but I don't love Pac losing clean here. I really, really want to see that guy be elevated into the main event scene much more regularly. Right now, he's arguably third or fourth ranked in the Death Riders, depending on how you look at him versus Claudio. I'd like to see him more on the Ospreay Moxley tier. Pac deserves many more flowers. I can say that in every pod, and it still won't be enough. So I would have liked to have seen maybe some backfiring shenanigans that allowed Shota to get the win if he was going to retain. But Pac lost clean as a whistle. I don't think that does enough for the Pac character going forward, who I think deserves a lot more than he gets. And then post-match, we had Moxley confronting Shota Umino, which then brought out Hiroshi Tanahashi, the ace, to sort of endorse Shota Umino in that little slowly brewing conflict, and that could lead us maybe in the future to Moxley defending the Continental Championship against Shota in a teacher versus student match. That could be really fun. I would definitely be down for that. Whether it's Dynamite, whether it's a pay-per-view, I don't care. I think it would just be a fun match. Especially if you do have Tanahashi's involvement on some level. So gives it a bit more stakes, which is always helpful, especially in a pay-per-view like this that generally doesn't do a lot from a stakes standpoint. So I'd love to see that going forward. But overall, I was definitely entertained in this match. I think it was better than some of the ones that came before it. I think it was better than, for example, Mox versus Bandito. I think you can argue it was better than the opening three-way tag match. Won't say it was better than Kenny versus Zack, just very different styles of matches. But I liked it. I think I was a bit more engrossed because there was a bit more booking behind it and story behind it. And as we are well aware, since we're on this channel, story and booking is one of the two parts that make up the duality of wrestling. It can't just be in the ring. It can't just be story. We need both for something to be successful in professional wrestling. This, I think, had the closest thing to that we've seen so far. So I think this has been my preference for what I've liked overall so far. And that'll move us into Tekla defending the AEW Women's World Championship against Starlight Kid in basically what's been Tekla feuding with the Stardom promotion for the better part of 6 weeks now. We got our first special entrance of the night. We had Tekla getting sort of fire dancers. One of them I actually thought was Sky Blue at first. She looked very similar, but nope, just got some pretty cool fire dancers. I like special entrances on pay-per-views, so more of that, please, would be preferred. Just gives it more of that big fight feel when you get unique introductions that you don't see on weekly TV all the time. So very much here for that. I was very impressed and surprised here with Starlight Kid. Obviously, I was not super familiar with her work in the ring. I don't really watch Stardom. I don't really watch much Japanese wrestling as a whole. Judge me away for that as you will. I understand the criticism. I just only have so much time to watch so much wrestling, and I devote almost all of it to AEW, so it leaves me a little bit lacking in terms of where else I can spend mental and emotional energy consuming wrestling content, and stuff from, the Far East doesn't usually make it into that rotation, unfortunately. But I did some, research on Starlight Kid and was impressed by what I read. But I was really impressed by this match. I was a little surprised. I felt like Starlight Kid was doing a little heel-esque work, or at least work we generally ascribe to heels in a wrestling match. She had some cockier covers that she would put on Tekla. She had like the foot on the chest cover. We had her more in control of a lot of the pace and offense in this match, which is not something you typically see in your generic heel champion versus babyface challenger title match. Usually it's the other way around. So I was a little bit surprised that they allowed Starlight Kid to dictate the pace and offensive flow as much as happened. And it made for a different dynamic. And I think that dynamic actually played out pretty well. You also had a pretty cool lifting knee drop into and with an assisted leg drop combo that Starlight Kid executed at one point. I really liked that. I like when you can add leverage and weight to moves to make them look a bit more impactful than they might be in their normal textbook variety, and that was something that was done here pretty well. So I liked that. You had a really brutal neck-based looking tarantula that was applied by Tekla in this match. Looked really, really good. And where I have to say the camera work was really on point, not just in that spot, but throughout this match. They caught visually a lot of the work that was being done very, very well. So I've had beef with some of the camera work that was done in the past, but this was a really good example of camera work and how when it's done well, it can add to a match significantly. So good job, AEW production staff here. The whole contest overall was much better than I expected. I really was thinking this would just be another match that we had a pretty expected ending that would be fun, but nothing that would really resonate with me. But I think it really did. It stuck out to me. Starlight Kid was better than I thought she was. Tekla was her usual excellent self. And Starlight Kid really had a lot of technical chops that I wasn't aware of. I was not familiar with your game, SLK. That stretch muffler with the armbar that they call the numero dos, which, interesting that we're going to make a number 2 reference in there. So strange, but if that's what we're going to call it, that's fine. It looked pretty cool. And Starlight Kid did a really good job of integrating her own legs into it to get some more leverage and make the move look more vicious. So good for them. And I also thought it was a really good decision to have Stardom president Taro Okada sitting ringside. He did a really good job at putting through and conveying emotional, stress. Obviously, this was mostly, as I mentioned, a feud that Tekla had with the Stardom promotion. So having Stardom's president there who has personal history with Tekla, having fired Tekla in the past, Tekla attacking the Stardom president, going over to Stardom recently to cause havoc over there. And I thought it worked really, really well. So our finish here, we had Tekla get the win following a spear and then 2 consecutive stomps, leading Tekla to retain her AEW Women's World Championship. Following the match, you had Tekla taking off the mask of Starlight Kid and spitting into it and then rubbing it in the face of President Taro Okada, which she is just playing this, for lack of a better term, Lady Brian Pillman loose cannon role so well. She is just so unhinged. You never know what she's going to do or say next. And it is really, really good. I don't know how that's going to work with some of the feuds that seem to be aligning in the future for the AEW Women's World Championship, especially given the alignment of some of the contenders, but we can get to that at another point. But for right now, I just want to focus on how pleasantly surprised I was with this match and how it reaffirms that Tekla is such a great choice to be Women's World Champion here. And I really hope she doesn't lose it necessarily anytime soon. I mean, I don't see her losing it before All In, and I'm not even sure I'm sold that I'm okay or want her to lose it then. So the women's division seems to be slowly, building back up steam. But again, Tekla is carrying this division right now. And I don't think we can say enough positively about the work she's done in carrying that division when you lose talent like a Toni Storm, like a Willow Nightingale, when you didn't initially have a Mercedes Moné to help bolster the star power of that division. She has elevated herself and as a result made that division's inadequacies in terms of talent depth look less significant than they really are. I'm gonna take a break here because I want to make us get into a part two. Please come back for part two. We're gonna talk about some of the more lengthy and significant matches of this card. So I'll get back into it in part two. Thanks for watching part one of my Forbidden Door 2026 review. I will see you at part two.